October 782. In a field near the Aller River in what is now northern Germany, 4,500 men kneel in the mud. They are unarmed, defeated, captured. Some are crying. Others pray to the old gods. Odin, the All-Father. Thor, the Thunderer. Freya, the goddess of war and beauty. These are Saxon warriors, men who have fought for their homeland for a decade. Men who refuse to bow to foreign kings or foreign gods. Proud men who believed they were unconquerable. They were wrong. Charlemagne, king of the Franks and future emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, stands before them on horseback. He is 40 years old, battle-hardened, ruthless. Around him, Frankish soldiers wait for orders, swords drawn, axes ready. Charlemagne gives the order. The executions begin. One by one, Saxon warriors are forced to their knees. One by one, Frankish executioners swing their swords. One by one, heads roll into the mud. This goes on for hours. By sunset, 4,500 Saxons are dead. The Aller. River runs red with blood. Bodies are piled like firewood. The smell of death hangs over the field for weeks. It is the largest mass execution in Charlemagne's reign, one of the largest in medieval history. And the Saxon wars? They are only halfway done. 22 more years of fighting lie ahead. This is the story of the Saxon wars. 32 years of brutal genocidal conflict between Christian Franks and pagan Saxons. A war of cultures, a war of religions, a war of survival, a war that Charlemagne nearly lost. This is the story of Widukind, the Saxon warlord who became a legend, the man who fought Charlemagne to a standstill for 3 decades, the ghost who escaped every trap, the warrior who united fractious tribes against impossible odds, the rebel who almost destroyed the Carolingian Empire. And this is the story of what conquest really meant in the 8th century. Not glorious battles with knights in shining armor, not honorable treaties and diplomatic marriages, but forced conversions at sword point, villages burned to ash, women and children taken as slaves, entire populations deported, sacred sites destroyed, mass executions. This is the story of how Charlemagne built his empire. On mountains of corpses. You know Charlemagne as the father of Europe, the great Christian emperor crowned by the Pope himself, the man who united the continent after Rome fell, the founder of the Holy Roman Empire. The history books celebrate him. But before any of that glory, before the imperial crown and the papal blessing, Charlemagne was something else, a conqueror drenched in blood, and the Saxons made him pay for every single inch of their land. Before we continue with this story, a quick request. If you are enjoying this so far, and want more people to know about this fascinating but dark piece of history, help the channel grow by leaving a like on this video. It tells the algorithm that people want to see this kind of content. And if you want more stories like this, stories that dig into the brutal corners of history that textbooks skip over, stories about real people facing impossible choices, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. I post deep dive historical videos like this every single week. It really helps me continue bringing you this content. All right? Now let us go back to 772, 10 years before the massacre at Verdun, to the very beginning of everything. To understand why Charlemagne invaded Saxony, you need to understand what Saxony actually was in the 8th century. Or rather, what it was not. Saxony was not a kingdom. It was not a unified state with a capital city, a single king, and an organized government like the Frankish realm. It was a region, a vast territory covering what is now northern Germany and parts of the Netherlands. And within that region lived dozens of independent Saxon tribes. The Westphalians controlled the western territories. The Eastphalians dominated the east. The Engrians held the center. The Nordalbingians lived north of the Elbe River. Each tribe was further divided into clans, each clan into extended families, each family fiercely protective of its honor, its land, and its independence. These tribes had no single ruler, no central authority. Instead, they were led by chieftains and warlords who commanded loyalty through personal reputation, success in battle, and the ability to reward their warriors with land and plunder. Leadership was earned, not inherited. A weak chieftain could be challenged. A strong warrior could rise to command hundreds of men through sheer force of personality and military skill. They were pagans, devout worshippers of the old Germanic gods. Odin, the one-eyed god of war, wisdom, and death. Thor, the mighty thunderer who protected humanity from giants and monsters. Freya, the beautiful and terrible goddess of love and war. Tyr, the god of justice who sacrificed his hand to bind the wolf Fenrir. The Saxons performed animal sacrifices to these gods. They honored sacred groves where no axe was allowed to touch the trees. They believed in fate, in destiny, in the web of weird that connected all things, and they despised Christianity. To the Saxons, Christianity was a foreign religion, a religion of submission and weakness, a religion that demanded you bow to invisible authority, a religion that forbade the old rituals, the old gods, the old ways. Worse, Christianity came with Frankish missionaries, and Frankish missionaries came with Frankish soldiers. The Saxons understood what conversion really meant. It meant Frankish control, Frankish taxes, Frankish laws, the end of Saxon independence. So when Frankish priests arrived in Saxon villages, they were often driven out, sometimes killed. Most importantly, the Saxons had no cities, no stone fortifications, no written laws, no Roman legacy like the Franks had inherited. Their society was based on kinship, oral tradition, and honor. If you killed a Saxon, his family would hunt you to the ends of the earth. If you insulted a chieftain, you might be challenged to single combat. If you broke an oath, you were shamed and exiled. Justice was personal, immediate, violent, and every free Saxon man was a warrior. From childhood, Saxon boys trained with weapons, spears, swords, axes, shields. By the time they reached manhood, they were dangerous fighters, individually skilled and collectively fearless. The Saxons did not fight in organized formations like Roman legions or Frankish heavy cavalry. They fought as individual warriors in loose groups, relying on personal courage and ferocity. But they were effective, especially in their own territory, where they knew every forest path, every river crossing, every hidden marsh. Now imagine you are Charlemagne in 772. You are 30 years old. You have been king of the Franks for only 4 years, having shared power with your brother Carloman until his very convenient death just 1 year ago. Some whisper that Carloman's death was too convenient, that perhaps Charlemagne helped it along. But no one dares say this out loud. You are ambitious, ruthless, brilliant. You have already conquered Lombardy in northern Italy, crushing the Lombard kingdom and taking its iron crown for yourself. Your realm now stretches from the Pyrenees Mountains in the south to Bavaria in the east. You are the most powerful Christian ruler in Western Europe. Your court at Aachen is filled with scholars, poets, and theologians. You are building an empire not just of territory, but of culture and learning. The Carolingian Renaissance, historians will later call it. But you have a problem on your northeastern border, Saxony. For decades, Saxon raiders have been crossing into Frankish territory. They burn villages. They steal livestock and grain. They kill Frankish settlers who try to farm land near the border. They attack Frankish merchants traveling through Saxon territory. Worse, they have destroyed Frankish churches and monasteries. They have killed priests and monks who tried to convert them. In some cases, they have tortured Christian missionaries to death, leaving their bodies displayed as warnings. For a Christian king who sees himself as the defender of the faith, as the sword of God on earth, this is absolutely intolerable. Your father, Pepin the Short, fought the Saxons. Your grandfather, Charles Martel, fought the Saxons. Every Frankish king for the past century has fought the Saxons. But none of them conquered Saxony. They raided, they punished, they extracted tribute, but they always withdrew, and the Saxons always returned to their old ways. You decide to be different. You will not just raid Saxony. You will conquer it permanently. But Charlemagne also sees an opportunity beyond revenge and religion. Saxony is rich, not in gold or cities, but in resources that matter for building an empire. Timber, vast forests that can supply wood for fortifications, ships, and buildings. Iron. Saxon smiths are famous for their metalworking. Saxony has iron mines and forges producing high-quality weapons and tools. Fertile land. The North German plain is perfect for agriculture. It can support thousands of settlers and produce massive grain surpluses, and most importantly, manpower. Saxony has a large population of fierce warriors. If Charlemagne can conquer and convert the Saxons, he can add tens of thousands of soldiers to his armies. Remember from the previous video how the Carolingian military system worked? How Charlemagne needed constant supplies of warriors to maintain his vast empire? Well, the Saxons could provide exactly that, if they could be broken and converted. So in the spring of 772, Charlemagne assembles his army and marches northeast into Saxony. His first target is the Eresburg, a Saxon fortress in Westphalia in the western part of Saxon territory. The Eresburg is not a massive stone castle like those that will be built in later centuries. It is an earthwork fortification, wooden walls atop earthen ramparts. But it is strategically important, controlling access to the interior of Saxony. Charlemagne's army surrounds it. They have siege equipment, battering rams, scaling ladders. The Frankish heavy infantry, equipped with iron armor and shields, advance under a rain of Saxon arrows and spears. The battle is short and brutal. The Franks overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers and superior equipment. They storm over the walls. The Saxon garrison fights to the last man, refusing to surrender. By nightfall, the Eresburg is in Frankish hands. Charlemagne orders it burned. Then he marches deeper into Saxony, to a place even more important than any fortress. The Irminsul. The Irminsul is the holiest site in Saxon paganism. According to Saxon belief, it is the axis of the world, the cosmic pillar that connects Earth to the heavens, holding up the sky itself. Some scholars think it was a massive wooden pillar carved with sacred symbols. Others believe it was an ancient tree of enormous size, perhaps an oak that had stood for centuries. Whatever its exact form, the Irminsul was sacred. The Saxons made pilgrimages there. They performed sacrifices there. They stored tribute and offerings there, accumulating treasure over generations. Charlemagne arrives with his army, and he destroys it. His soldiers chop down the Irminsul. If it is a carved pillar, they smash it to pieces. If it is a tree, they cut it down and burn it. Then they loot the sacred site. Gold, silver, amber, bronze objects, weapons, jewelry, everything accumulated over decades or perhaps centuries. Charlemagne's soldiers load it all onto wagons and carry it back to Frankish territory. To the Franks, this is a great victory, a blow against paganism, a demonstration of Christian power. To the Saxons, this is an unforgivable sacrilege. Charlemagne has not just attacked them militarily, he has attacked their gods, their faith, the very foundation of their world. The destruction of the Irminsul is a declaration of total war. But Charlemagne does not understand this yet. He returns home to Francia thinking the problem is solved. The Saxons have seen Frankish military might. They have seen their holiest site destroyed. Surely now they will fear him. Surely now they will submit. He could not be more wrong. The moment Charlemagne withdraws his army from Saxon territory, the Saxons strike back. They rebuild the Eresburg fortress, raising new walls and bringing in new garrisons. They launch raids deep into Frankish territory. Not just border skirmishes, but organized attacks on Frankish settlements, churches, and monasteries. They burn churches to the ground. They kill missionaries with deliberate brutality. Some are tortured. Some are sacrificed to the Saxon gods. Their bodies are left nailed to trees or hung from sacred groves as warnings to other Christians. The message is clear. Stay out of Saxony. Your God has no power here. Charlemagne is furious, and for the first time, a name begins appearing in the Frankish chronicles, a name that will haunt Charlemagne for the next 13 years, Widukind. We know almost nothing about Widukind's early life, which makes him even more mysterious and legendary. He was probably born around 730, somewhere in Westphalia. This makes him roughly 10 years older than Charlemagne, already an experienced warrior when the wars began. He came from Saxon nobility, not royalty because the Saxons did not have kings, but from a powerful family of chieftains. His father was likely a war leader. His family probably controlled significant territory and could call on hundreds or even thousands of warriors. From childhood, Widukind would have been trained in warfare, spear throwing, sword play, shield combat, horseback riding, hunting, tracking. By his 20s, he was probably leading raids himself, earning reputation, building loyalty among young warriors. By the time Charlemagne destroyed the Irminsul, Widukind was around 40 years old. A mature warrior in his prime, experienced, cunning, absolutely fearless, and he had something rare among the Saxons, the ability to unite different tribes under his leadership. Remember, the Saxons were divided into many independent tribes that often fought each other. Getting them to cooperate was nearly impossible. But Widukind had charisma. He had military success. And most importantly, he had a cause that transcended tribal rivalries, the defense of Saxony itself against foreign conquest. By 775, Widukind has emerged as the single most important Saxon war leader. He does not call himself a king. The Saxons would not accept that. But he commands loyalty across tribal boundaries in a way few Saxon leaders ever have. Westphalians follow him. Eastphalians follow him. Even Engrians follow him. And Widukind understands something absolutely crucial about this war. He cannot defeat Charlemagne in open battle. The Frankish army is simply too large, too well equipped, too organized. When Charlemagne marches into Saxony with his full host, he brings thousands of heavily armored cavalry, thousands of infantry with iron weapons and shields, siege equipment, supply trains. If Widukind faces this army in open battle, his Saxons will be slaughtered. So Widukind fights a completely different kind of war, guerrilla warfare. When Charlemagne invades, Widukind retreats. He melts away into the vast Saxon forests and marshlands. He takes his warriors deep into territory where the Franks cannot follow effectively. The Franks control the roads and the open ground, but the Saxons control the wilderness. And Widukind waits. He lets Charlemagne burn villages. He lets Charlemagne destroy fortifications. He lets Charlemagne force mass baptisms at sword point. But the moment Charlemagne withdraws his army, Widukind returns. He ambushes Frankish supply convoys. He attacks isolated Frankish garrisons. He raids Frankish settlements in lightning strikes, burning churches and killing collaborators. And he undoes everything Charlemagne accomplished. The Saxons renounce their forced baptisms. They rebuild their destroyed villages. They restore the old ways. It is psychological warfare as much as military warfare. Widukind is showing the Saxons that resistance is possible, that the Franks are not invincible, that if they stay strong, if they keep fighting, they can outlast the invaders. And it is working. For the next 7 years, from 775 to 782, the same pattern repeats over and over again. Charlemagne invades Saxony. He marches his army through Saxon territory, burning villages and taking hostages. He forces thousands of Saxons to kneel and accept baptism. He builds Frankish fortifications and leaves Frankish garrisons. He returns to Francia, believing he has finally conquered Saxony. Within months, Widukind returns. The Saxons rebel. They massacre the Frankish garrisons. They destroy the fortifications. They renounce Christianity. Charlemagne invades again, and again, and again. By 782, Charlemagne has invaded Saxony 18 times in 10 years. Think about what that means. 18 full military campaigns, mobilizing armies of thousands of men, marching hundreds of miles through hostile territory, supplying those armies with food, weapons, and equipment, fighting battles, conducting sieges. The cost in gold, resources, and manpower is staggering. And the Saxons are still not subdued. Worse, Charlemagne's Frankish nobles are getting restless and frustrated. Remember the warband model from the previous video? The idea that Carolingian armies were aristocratic warbands motivated by booty, glory, and the prospect of land grants? Well, there is not much booty in Saxony. The Saxons do not have treasure-filled cities to loot. They do not hoard gold in palaces. Their wealth is in land, livestock, and iron tools. After you have burned the same village 3 times, there is nothing left to plunder. And the glory? The glory of fighting the same enemy for a decade is wearing very thin. Some Frankish nobles start questioning whether this war is worth it, whether Saxony is even worth conquering, whether they should cut their losses and focus on enemies that actually have wealth to plunder. Charlemagne cannot afford this doubt. He cannot afford to look weak. He needs a decisive victory, something dramatic, something that will break Saxon resistance once and for all. In 782, he thinks he has found his opportunity. That summer, Charlemagne is in Saxony with a large army when urgent news arrives from the east. The Sorbs, a Slavic tribe living beyond the Frankish eastern frontier, have launched a major raid into Frankish territory. They are burning settlements and threatening the entire eastern border. Charlemagne makes a decision. He will split his forces. He will march east with the bulk of his army to deal with the Sorbs himself. They need to be crushed quickly, before other Slavic tribes join the rebellion. Meanwhile, 3 of his most trusted commanders will remain in Saxony with a smaller, but still substantial force. Their job is simple: maintain defensive positions, guard the fortifications, and keep the Saxons under control until Charlemagne returns. These 3 commanders are experienced warriors, veterans of dozens of campaigns. Adalgis is a Frankish count, a powerful nobleman who has fought for Charlemagne for years. Gilo is a high-ranking military officer, known for his aggression and courage. Warad is another experienced count, a man Charlemagne has trusted with important commands before. Charlemagne gives them absolutely clear orders before he leaves. Maintain defensive positions. Do not take unnecessary risks. Do not engage the Saxons in open battle. Wait for my return. Above all, do not underestimate Widukind. The 3 commanders nod. They understand. They will follow orders. But the moment Charlemagne marches east toward the Sorbs, everything changes. Scouts bring news. Widukind has been spotted nearby with a Saxon army. Not a huge force, maybe a few thousand warriors, but definitely Widukind himself. Adalgis, Gilo, and Warad see an opportunity. If they can capture or kill Widukind, the Saxon resistance will collapse. They will be heroes. They will be the men who finally ended this decade-long war. The glory, the fame, the rewards from Charlemagne. It is too tempting. They decide to attack. Against direct orders, they mobilize their forces and march toward Widukind's reported position. They are confident. They have Frankish heavy cavalry. They have experienced soldiers. They outnumber the Saxons. What could go wrong? They march their army into the Suntel Mountains, a forested highland region in southern Saxony. Widukind is waiting. He has chosen the battlefield carefully. A narrow valley with forested slopes on both sides. Terrible terrain for cavalry. Perfect terrain for ambush. The Frankish. Army advances into the valley in marching formation. They expect to find the Saxons somewhere ahead, probably retreating. Instead, the Saxons attack from the high ground. Hundreds of Saxon warriors emerge from the forests on both slopes. They rain down spears, arrows, and rocks on the Franks below. The Frankish formation breaks apart. Cavalry horses panic. Infantry huddle behind shields. Then Widukind leads a direct charge down the slopes. The Saxon warriors crash into the disorganized Frankish lines like a hammer. It is slaughter. Frankish nobles in heavy armor are dragged from their horses and hacked to death. Frankish soldiers break and run, only to be hunted down in the forests. Adalgis is killed. Cut down in the melee, Gilo is killed. His body will later be found stripped of armor, left where he fell. Warad is killed. Another experienced commander dead because of arrogance and disobedience. Dozens of other Frankish nobles die with them. Counts, administrators, officers. The cream of the Frankish military aristocracy is destroyed in a single afternoon. The survivors flee in panic, abandoning weapons, armor, and supplies. It is one of the worst defeats Charlemagne has ever suffered. Perhaps the worst. When news of the disaster at Suntel reaches Charlemagne, he is hundreds of miles away, still dealing with the Sorbs. He is furious, not just because of the defeat, not just because 3 of his commanders disobeyed direct orders and got themselves killed. He is furious because the Saxons have humiliated him again. For 10 years, Widukind has made him look like a fool. For 10 years, Charlemagne has poured resources into Saxony without achieving lasting victory. And now, while he is distracted elsewhere, Widukind has destroyed a Frankish army. Other kingdoms are watching. The Bavarians, the Lombards, the Byzantine Empire, the Abbasid Caliphate. They are watching to see if Charlemagne is really as powerful as he claims, or if he is just another barbarian king who cannot even control his own borders. Charlemagne makes a decision. This time, he will not just defeat the Saxons, he will terrorize them. He will make them so afraid that they will never dare rebel again. He quickly concludes his campaign against the Sorbs, leaving garrisons to hold the eastern border. Then he marches his entire army back to Saxony, and he is ready to do something he has never done before. Mass execution. This story gets even darker from here. If you are following along and want more people to know about this brutal but important piece of history, share this video. Send it to that friend who loves medieval history, and leave a comment. What do you think so far? Could the Saxons have won if they had used different tactics? Was Widukind a freedom fighter or a terrorist? I want to hear your perspective. All right, let us continue. When Charlemagne returns to Saxony after the disaster at Suntel, he is no longer interested in mercy or moderation. He wants revenge. He sends messengers to all the Saxon chieftains in the region. The message is simple. Hand over the warriors who participated in the rebellion at Suntel. Surrender them immediately, or face total annihilation. Many Saxon chieftains are terrified. They have seen what Charlemagne's army can do. They know they cannot win a direct confrontation. Under threat of extermination, many comply. They round up warriors from their tribes. Some are men who actually fought at Suntel. Others are just convenient scapegoats. Young men, troublemakers, anyone the chieftains want to get rid of. These men are bound and brought to Charlemagne's camp at Verdun, a settlement near the Aller River. 4,500 Saxon warriors. When Charlemagne looks at these men, he does not see prisoners of war. He does not see potential subjects who could be converted and integrated into his empire. He sees rebels, oath breakers, enemies of God. He orders them executed. All of them. The executions begin in the morning and continue all day. Groups of Saxons are forced to kneel. Frankish executioners move down the line, swinging swords and axes. Heads fall. Blood pools in the mud. Some Frankish nobles object. Some priests protest. This is too much. This goes beyond military necessity. This is massacre. Charlemagne ignores them. By evening, 4,500 men are dead. Their bodies are thrown into mass graves. The Aller River, where the blood has drained, runs red for days. Now, some modern historians argue the number might be exaggerated. The original Latin text says 3,000 AD, which could mean 4,500, or if it is a copying error, 450. But even if the true number is only 450, it is still a mass execution of staggering brutality by medieval standards. And the Frankish sources do not describe it as a mistake or an exaggeration. They record it matter-of-factly, as if mass execution was a normal, justified response to rebellion. The massacre at Verdun changes everything. Before Verdun, the Saxon wars were brutal but not genocidal. Charlemagne wanted to conquer the Saxons, convert them to Christianity, and integrate them into his empire. After Verdun, the Saxons understand this is no longer about submission. This is about survival. Submit completely. Convert completely. Obey completely. Abandon your gods, your culture, your identity, or die. Charlemagne does not stop with the executions. He immediately issues a new law, the Capitulatio de Partibus Saxoniae. The capitulary concerning the parts of Saxony. It is one of the harshest, most draconian legal codes in all of medieval history. Here is what it says. Any Saxon who refuses baptism shall be put to death. Any Saxon who returns to paganism after being baptized shall be put to death. Any Saxon who eats meat during Lent shall be put to death. Any Saxon who cremates their dead according to pagan custom instead of burying them in Christian cemeteries shall be put to death. Any Saxon who plots against Christians or Christian churches shall be put to death. Any Saxon who refuses to pay the church tithe shall be put to death. Any Saxon who hides from baptism in the forests shall be put to death. Any Saxon who performs pagan sacrifices shall be put to death. Death, 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 death. The law essentially makes being Saxon illegal. It makes practicing Saxon culture punishable by execution. You cannot worship your gods. You cannot follow your traditions. You cannot even eat according to your own customs. You must become Frankish. You must become Christian, completely, or you will be killed. This is not conversion. This is cultural extermination backed by mass violence, and for a while it seems to work. Many Saxon chieftains surrender in terror. They accept baptism, sometimes for the third or fourth time. They swear elaborate oaths of loyalty to Charlemagne. They hand over hostages, usually their own sons, to guarantee their good behavior. Some of them probably mean it. Many do not, but they are too afraid to resist openly. Saxon villages across Westphalia and Engria submit. Churches are built. Frankish priests arrive. Pagan shrines are destroyed. But there is one Saxon who refuses to surrender. One man who will not bow, will not convert, will not submit, Widukind. After the massacre at Verdun, Widukind vanishes. According to Frankish sources, he flees north across the Elbe River into Danish territory. There he finds refuge with King Sigfrid of Denmark, a pagan king who has no love for Charlemagne or the Franks. For the next 3 years, from 782 to 785, Widukind lives in exile in Denmark. But he is not hiding. He is planning, recruiting, building alliances. He knows he cannot defeat Charlemagne alone. The Westphalian Saxons have been decimated. Their leadership is dead or captured. Their will to resist is broken. But the other Saxon tribes, the Eastphalians, the Angrians, the Nordalbingians, they are still angry, still defiant. And they are waiting for a leader. Widukind spends 3 years in Denmark preparing for one final massive rebellion. In 784, Widukind returns to Saxony. He crosses back from Denmark with a mixed army of Saxon exiles and Danish warriors. King Siegfried has given him soldiers, weapons, and supplies. And the moment Widukind sets foot in Saxony again, the tribes rise up. This is not a localized uprising. This is every Saxon tribe simultaneously erupting in revolt. The Westphalians rise. The Eastphalians rise. The Angrians rise. Even the Nordalbingians across the Elbe join the rebellion. Even some Frisians, another Germanic tribe on the coast, join Widukind's cause. It is the largest, most coordinated Saxon rebellion yet. Widukind's warriors attack Frankish settlements across the entire region. They storm fortifications, they destroy churches and monasteries, they kill Frankish priests, administrators, and collaborators. They burn everything the Franks built. For several months, it seems like Widukind might actually win. Like the Saxons might drive the Franks out forever. Frankish nobles panic. Some abandon their positions and flee back to Francia. News reaches Charlemagne's court, the worst possible news. Widukind is back. Saxony is in full revolt. Everything Charlemagne accomplished in 12 years is collapsing. Charlemagne responds immediately. He mobilizes his entire army, not just the forces stationed near Saxony, his complete military might, thousands of heavy cavalry, tens of thousands of infantry, supply trains stretching for miles. But this time, Charlemagne does something unprecedented. He brings his entire court with him. His advisors, his family, his administrators. He is making a statement to the Saxons and to his own nobles. He is not leaving Saxony until this war is finished, one way or another. The two armies finally meet somewhere in Westphalia. The exact location is lost to history. The sources just call it the place of battle. It is not really a battle. It is an execution. The Frankish heavy cavalry, thousands of armored horsemen, crashes into the Saxon lines like an iron avalanche. The Saxons fight desperately, but they are outnumbered, out-equipped, and exhausted from months of constant warfare. The Saxon lines shatter. Warriors throw down their weapons and run. The Frankish cavalry hunts them through the forests for days. Thousands of Saxons are killed in the battle and the pursuit that follows. Thousands more are captured. And Widukind? Once again, somehow, impossibly, he escapes. But this time, everything is different. After this devastating defeat, Widukind finally understands something. He cannot win. He is 55 years old. He has been fighting for 13 years. He has won battles, but he has not won the war. The Saxon tribes are exhausted. Entire generations have been wiped out. Tens of thousands are dead. Villages have been burned so many times there is nothing left to rebuild. And Charlemagne? He can lose 10 battles and still come back. He has more soldiers, more resources, more time. The Franks can endure forever. The Saxons cannot. For the first time, Widukind considers the unthinkable: surrender. In early 785, Widukind sends messengers to Charlemagne. He is willing to negotiate, willing to discuss terms. But he has one non-negotiable condition. He will only surrender directly to Charlemagne, face to face. No intermediaries, no Frankish nobles. It is a brilliant move. By insisting on surrendering directly to the king, Widukind elevates his own status. He is not just another defeated tribal chieftain. He is a worthy opponent, important enough that the king himself must receive his submission. It also guarantees his safety. If he surrenders to Frankish nobles, they might kill him out of revenge for all the Franks who died fighting him. But if he surrenders to Charlemagne himself, with witnesses, he becomes a valuable asset rather than a target. Charlemagne agrees to the terms. The meeting happens at Attigny, one of Charlemagne's royal estates in what is now northeastern France. When Widukind arrives, he is still a pagan, still technically an enemy of the Frankish king. But he kneels before Charlemagne, and he accepts baptism. The ceremony is elaborate. Frankish nobles and clergy fill the hall. Widukind is dressed in white baptismal robes. Charlemagne himself stands as Widukind's godfather during the baptism, a hugely symbolic gesture. In Christian theology, a godparent has a spiritual relationship with their godchild almost as close as a blood relation. By serving as Widukind's godfather, Charlemagne is declaring that Widukind is now part of the Frankish Christian family. He cannot be treated as an enemy anymore. He is kin. After the baptism, Charlemagne gives Widukind extraordinary gifts: land, income, titles. He makes Widukind a Frankish nobleman. In return, Widukind swears an oath of loyalty to Charlemagne as his lord and king. The ceremony ends. Widukind, the pagan Saxon warlord, is gone. In his place stands Widukind, the Christian Frankish nobleman. And just like that, the Great Rebellion is over. Or is it? Because here is where the story becomes strange. After 785, Widukind completely disappears from history. Every chronicle, every source, every document. He is never mentioned again. We do not know when he died. We do not know where he lived. We do not know what he did with the rest of his life. It is as if Widukind becomes a ghost for the second time. First, when he fled to Denmark, and again after his baptism. Later legends fill in the gaps. Some say Widukind became a pious Christian, founding churches and living quietly until his death of old age. Others say he became a monk, spending his final years in prayer and penance. There are even claims that he was buried at the Church of Anger in Westphalia, though this cannot be verified. But contemporary sources? Nothing. Not a single word. Did Charlemagne deliberately erase him from the record to prevent him from becoming a martyr? Did Widukind die shortly after his baptism? Did he live quietly and unremarkably as a minor Frankish noble? We will never know. What we do know is this: the baptism of Widukind does not end the Saxon Wars, not even close. For the next 19 years, from 785 to 804, the Saxons continue to rebel, not in one massive coordinated uprising like Widukind's revolt, but in smaller localized rebellions that erupt constantly across Saxon territory. A village refuses to pay tribute to the church. Frankish tax collectors are killed. A chieftain renounces his baptism and returns to the old gods. His followers burn down the local church. A band of Saxon warriors ambushes a Frankish convoy and disappears into the forests. Each time, Charlemagne responds with overwhelming force. He marches armies into the rebellious regions. He burns villages. He executes leaders. He takes hostages. But most devastatingly, he deports entire populations. Thousands of Saxon families are forcibly relocated to other parts of the Frankish Empire. Thousands of Frankish colonists are settled in Saxony to replace them. This is ethnic cleansing by any modern definition. Entire communities are torn apart. Families are separated. People are marched hundreds of miles from their ancestral lands and told to start over in regions where they do not speak the language and know no one. Meanwhile, Frankish monasteries are built across Saxony. Frankish administrators take control of Saxon territories. Frankish laws replace Saxon customs. Churches are erected on the sites of destroyed pagan shrines. Christian saints replace Germanic gods. Slowly, brutally, systematically, over 19 more years, Saxony is integrated into the Carolingian Empire. The last recorded Saxon revolt is crushed in 804. It has taken 32 years, 18 major campaigns under Charlemagne alone, tens of thousands dead. But finally, Saxony is conquered. And the Saxons? Within a single generation, they become Franks. We are almost at the end of this story. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, now is the time. I make deep dive historical videos like this every single week, and you will not want to miss them. Click that subscribe button and hit the bell. Now let us talk about what all of this means. So what is the legacy of the Saxon Wars? First, the obvious. Charlemagne's conquest of Saxony completed the Christianization of Western Europe. After 804, there are no more significant pagan populations west of the Elbe River. From Spain to Germany, from Italy to the North Sea, Christianity is the dominant and essentially only legal religion. This is one of the main reasons Charlemagne is celebrated in history as the father of Christian Europe. But that legacy is built on a mountain of corpses. Modern estimates suggest that between 30,000 and 100,000 Saxons died during the 32 years of war. Some estimates go even higher. Many more were enslaved, deported, or forcibly converted. Entire Saxon tribes were effectively destroyed, entire cultures erased. The Saxon language survived, barely, and would eventually evolve into Low German. But Saxon paganism did not survive. Today, we know almost nothing about pre-Christian Saxon religion beyond fragments preserved in later Christian texts, place names, and folk traditions. The sacred groves are gone. The gods are forgotten. The Irminsul is a legend. Second, the Saxon Wars reveal something important about Charlemagne himself. He is often portrayed in history as a wise, benevolent ruler, the great unifier, the father of Europe, the defender of Christianity and civilization. And in many ways, he was all those things. But he was also a conqueror, who waged a war of cultural extermination against people who refused to submit to his authority and his religion. The massacre at Verdun is not an isolated incident or a regrettable exception. It is policy. Even some of Charlemagne's own contemporaries criticized him for his brutality in Saxony. Alcuin of York, one of Charlemagne's closest advisors and one of the greatest scholars of the age, wrote multiple letters questioning the forced conversions and mass violence. In one letter, Alcuin wrote, "What is the point of baptism without faith? A man can be forced to the baptismal font, but he cannot be forced to believe." In another, he asked, "Why are we killing people for refusing a faith that is supposed to be about love and forgiveness?" These were dangerous questions to ask in the 8th century, but Alcuin asked them because he could see what was happening. Charlemagne was not converting the Saxons. He was terrorizing them into outward compliance while breeding deep resentment that would last for generations. Third, the Saxon Wars show us what conquest actually meant in the early Middle Ages. This was not a war of battles and treaties. It was a war of attrition, deportation, and cultural annihilation. The Frankish army did not just defeat the Saxons militarily. It systematically dismantled Saxon society piece by piece. Villages burned, populations relocated, leaders executed or co-opted, pagan shrines destroyed, churches built on their ruins, laws imposed, languages suppressed, identities erased. Within 2 generations, Saxony was unrecognizable. And yet, somehow, the Saxons adapted. They survived. They learned Latin and Frankish. They converted to Christianity, sincerely or not. They served in Frankish armies and administrations, and they thrived. By the 10th century, Saxon nobles were among the most powerful in Europe. In 919, just over a century after the Saxon Wars ended, a Saxon duke named Henry the Fowler became king of Germany. His son Otto I became Holy Roman Emperor. The Saxon-Ottonian dynasty would rule Germany for over a century and dominate European politics. The Saxons, once the most dangerous enemies of the Franks, became the rulers of the Frankish successor state. So was the conquest a tragedy or a transformation? Was Charlemagne a monster or a visionary? Historians still debate this passionately. Some argue that the forced Christianization of Saxony was genocide, a deliberate attempt to destroy Saxon culture, identity, and religion. Others argue that integration into the Carolingian Empire brought stability, literacy, legal systems, and economic development to Saxony. That the violence, while terrible, was not unusual for the time and ultimately led to progress. Both perspectives have merit. Both are partially true. What is undeniable is this. The Saxon Wars were one of the bloodiest, longest, and most consequential conflicts of the entire early Middle Ages. They transformed Saxony from a collection of independent pagan tribes into an integral part of Christian Europe. They transformed the Carolingian Empire from a regional power into a continent-spanning empire, and they transformed Charlemagne, himself from a Frankish king, into a legend. Because after 32 years of war, Charlemagne was no longer just the king of the Franks. He was something greater. On Christmas Day in the year 800, Pope Leo III placed a crown on Charlemagne's head in Rome and proclaimed him Imperator Romanorum, Emperor of the Romans. It was the first time anyone had claimed that title in Western Europe since the fall of Rome over 300 years earlier. And one of the main reasons the Pope felt confident crowning Charlemagne emperor? Because Charlemagne had done what no one else could do. He had united Western Europe under Christian rule. He had conquered the supposedly unconquerable Saxons. He had built an empire that would endure, in various forms, for 1,000 years. The Holy Roman Empire would claim Charlemagne as its founder. Medieval kings would claim descent from him. Napoleon would invoke his name. Even Hitler would try to appropriate his legacy. But that empire, that legacy, that legend, was built on rivers of blood. And one of those rivers was the Aller, where 4,500 Saxons died in a single October day in 782. This was the story of the Saxon Wars, a story of resistance and conquest, of faith and violence, of Widukind and Charlemagne, a story of how Charlemagne built post-Roman Europe's first super army and used it to crush the last great pagan tribes of Germania. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Leave a comment. Do you think Charlemagne was a hero or a war criminal by modern standards? Do you think the Saxons could have won if Widukind had different strategies or better resources? Do you think forced conversion can ever really work? I genuinely want to know what you think about this complex, brutal, fascinating piece of history. Next week, I am going to tell you the story of the Avar Ring, the greatest treasure hoard in early medieval European history. How Charlemagne's general Eric of Friuli captured it. How it contained enough gold and silver to fund the Carolingian Empire for 15 years. And how it mysteriously vanished. It is an even wilder story than this one. Until then, remember this. History is not clean, it is not simple, and it never forgets. Even when we try to make it.